Okay, we have 5 minutes until we commence the program properly. How many of us do we have present here already? Insightful analysis. We look forward to exploring your ideas and the impact you have made.
Oh,
Good evening, sir.
good evening.
Yes, sir. It's so nice to have you on board, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. I'm waiting a little while for Pastor Osini. Yes, he's joining already. You're welcome, sir.
Thank
Yeah,
you
thank
very
you.
much.
Good evening. Are we live now?
I believe so.
I don't think
Yes.
so.
I don't think so. We are starting live immediately by 6:15, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. I said I should take some nap and I slept up. Um, blessing, blessing. Jesus.
It's past our proceeding time. I'd like to start with immediate notice. Pastor Osini,
Bayo, mo wà ní TV internet meeting kan di.
while we wait for Mr. Osini to join us, I'll proceed with the program as it is a 45 minutes program. We can't afford to let any minute go by. Welcome, everybody. You're welcome on board to Impact 45. Welcome to another episode where we have a great person in our midst. People who were able to attend the last episode were able to grab the every details about the vision and the goals of Impact 45 itself. Why Impact 45? Our goals and our mission. We're able to talk about a lot of economic issues and their solutions. Today we'll be diving strictly into the economic state of Nigeria. And today we have the privilege of discussing with Mr. Ayo Teriba, a distinguished figure in the field of economics with a PhD of econometrics and from Durham and decades of experiences as an economic associate. He has significantly contributed to our knowledge of maximizing wealth. Mr. Hayo is known for spreading economic reform advocacy, as his advocacy for Naira redomination spurred the birth of 100 Naira, 200 Naira, 500 Naira, and 1000 Naira notes. Isn't that impressive? Mr. Ayer is recognized for his innovative approaches and his insightful analysis. We look forward to exploring his ideas and the impact he has made in the economic world. Impact 45, join me as I welcome on board Mr. Ayo Teriba. You're welcome on board, sir. I think your mic is muted, sir. You need to unmute your mic, sir. Your mic is muted, sir. Can the technical please help us undo that, please? You are yet to unmute your mic, sir. Dr. Hayateriba.
Well, I can't find the unmute button.
Yeah, you just did, sir. We can hear you
Ah,
clearly now, sir.
it must be the technical team that did it because I couldn't find the unmute button. They probably muted it from their end. Because you and I
Okay.
spoke before and I have not touched this since that.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Moderator, Rachel,
Rachel, sir.
good evening.
Good evening,
And
sir.
good evening to all participants.
Thank you very much, sir.
I'm pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You're most welcome, sir. We're so happy to have you here in our midst. So currently, every person has been lamenting and giving their own opinion and suggestion or even their ideas concerning what is going on in the economy of Nigeria currently. So we decided to bring a platform such as Impact 45 to let people be able to lend their voices, bring out their curious questions, and of course, have important and knowledgeable people such as you, sir, to actually provide answers to these questions, of which we are highly honored to have you in our midst, sir. So today
Thank
I
you so
have,
much.
you're welcome, sir. Today I have quite a number of questions prepared, but before we go deeply into the questions, I would like us to just go briefly into the economic state of Nigeria. In one word, what can we describe the economic state of Nigeria presently, sir?
Well, if you actually mean one word, then I'll say evolving.
Evolving.
Yes. But you probably don't mean one word. So if you give me
I'll,
the go ahead that
I'll
it
give it
didn't
the go
mean one.
I'll give it the go
Yeah.
ahead. I really needed the one word. I really needed the one word. And of course, I'll also need the explanations for the two.
It's evolving. The Nigerian economic situation is evolving. And I'm happy that you, our moderator tonight, say you are happy, uh, you know, about the economy. And I'm happy that you're happy. And I hope that the conversation that we are going to have this evening makes you happier. The economic situation, is a journey. It's never a destination. So you
Hmm.
can, roll back to the date that our president took office last year, May 29,
Yes, sir.
and look at the situation. Look at that as a bus stop, and look at the situation, at that bus stop or at that train station before we departed, that train station, continuing the journey, and you look at where we are now as another train station, and you ask yourself what things have changed. Yeah, the government, in an effort to solve problems that they met when they got to office, had felt compelled to take certain steps. And notably, the liberalization of the exchange rate, prior to June last year,
Yes, sir.
the government kept the exchange rate officially pegged, but they were constantly chased by the shadow, their own shadow, that the private market rate would be almost twice, as cheap as the official exchange rate. So government had never really been able to keep the exchange rate fixed because a private market rate will emerge. So doing unifying the rates and letting the market determine the rate was an inevitable decision. We cannot continue to deceive ourselves. Fixing it is a journey in self-deceit. So we are in a regime in which what we look at the mirror, whether you are looking at the official exchange rate or you are looking at the private market exchange, is true portrayal of what you are. So
Hmm.
it should release your energy to try and improve what you see the next time you show up before the mirror. And that's
Hmm.
the part that the government needs to do more about. They should be encouraged to maintain that market determined exchange rate. And we should also encourage ourselves to ask questions about what government needs to do to have a stable exchange rate in a free market environment. Countries around us, that's what, the likes, any country where you find their exchange rate to be stable and they don't have a parallel market that haunts them, means that they are able to meet reasonable demand, all demand for forex at the exchange rate that they maintain. So there's no parallel market. There are no multiple rates. All transactions get settled at the same rate. So is that search for how to keep the exchange rate stable in the market situation that Nigeria must embark on? And I don't want to keep you in suspense. It's an open secret. It's something that is obvious to everybody. Everybody tells the government every day that our reserves level are low. We
Yes.
used to have more than $40 billion in foreign reserves, even before we quoted the exchange rate. And it was hardly enough. Now you have 30 billion, plus or minus 5 or plus or minus 7, and you are maintaining a free market exchange rate. So the reason why the exchange rate is on a free fall is as obvious as reserve inadequacy. So the key question is, what should the government do
Hmm.
to achieve reserve adequacy?
Decreasing.
Nigeria's problem under President Tinubu is one, and that one problem is reserve inadequacy. Weak exchange rate is a consequence of that. Is a
That.
symptom of inadequate reserve. So, and okay, pump price of petroleum products, pump price rising again and again is a consequence of weak exchange rate.
Hmm.
Or electricity tariff, going up, is a consequence of weak exchange rate.
Weak exchange rate.
Labor, the struggle about labor wage negotiation and the rest of it, the hunger protests, consequence of weak exchange rate. So fix the reserves so you can fix the exchange rates and all the other variables will fall in place. Is a challenge that President Tinubu and his team need to rise up to. You can't abdicate that responsibility. As a country, we encourage banks. We tell banks all the time, increase your capital base. Increase your capital base. That's their own reserves. So you before you begin to point out the speck in the eyes of banks, let us remove the log in our own eyes as a country. We are not letting banks give excuse why they can't increase their equity. We give them a deadline. Either increase it or merge or you lose your license. Let's give ourselves that kind of, because if you don't have adequate reserve, Naira will not be stable, inflation will never come down, interest rate will never come down, hardships will continue, and you begin to say to people, give you cash, so that you can buy fuel. We give you cash, to meet standard. Don't give anybody cash. Stabilize exchange rate. Let the Naira go back to 600, 500.
Exactly.
And you don't need to give anybody any cash. So that everybody will have enough, to meet their daily needs. Well, I don't want to take the whole time giving you lectures, but this is a very fundamental gap in the Nigerian macro situation right now. Inadequate reserves.
Thank you very much for that. That's open. I believe that has opened the eyes of many of our listeners currently concerning the reserves. That's so insightful. I believe I once had the thoughts concerning that, and I was discussing it sometimes back with a fellow of mine, and we were discussing about the fact that Nigeria was actually borrowing money to actually maintain the economy at a point. But then we brought up the discussion concerning the reserve too. And it's such an honor. It's really, really so insightful and really, really good to hear that from you this evening. I really appreciate that. That brings me back to people talking about COVID-19. The fact that COVID-19 happened years back, a lot of people still said it's also affected Nigeria economy. Is there any recovery strategies that are being put in place to actually help us back on our feet, sir?
Well, COVID-19 was not a Nigerian problem.
Yes.
It did not originate in Nigeria. And its worst incidence was not in Nigeria.
Yeah, you're right, sir.
So let Nigeria not use COVID-19 as an excuse.
As an excuse.
COVID-19 originated from a lab in China.
Yeah.
The incidence of COVID-19 was far more devastating on China,
Than in
far more
Nigeria.
devastating on India, on Brazil, on US, on Europe than Nigeria. We didn't lose more than a 1,000 plus people. They lost millions of people. They are not using COVID-19. This is 2024. COVID-19 was 2020, 2021. They are growing very fast right now. The world is using China and India as examples of, the correct, economic indicators, in spite of more severe incidences of COVID-19. It's not holding the economy back. COVID-19 was a temporary problem. It came, it was severe while it lasted. Not severe in Nigeria because of the incidence of the disease. We had mild exposure to the COVID-19 in Nigeria, but it was severe in terms of the lockdown. Anywhere in the world, regardless of whether you had few or many incidences, you have total lockdown. So, but it was a
Yes.
global lockdown. Let no country use it as an excuse. Please erase that from your memory.
Mm.
COVID 19 has come, it has gone, and it has gone since 2021. This is 2024 for crying out loud. So everybody is saying that we are suffering the effect of COVID 19. Come and show me the effect. Where is that effect of COVID 19? You can't go out, you have to stay at home, you have to social distance, or what? Or people are being hospitalized, or people are being put in intensive care, or people are dying. Oh, come on, please. Let's treat that.
Thank you.
COVID 19 was a severe problem, but it was a temporary problem.
Temporary problem. Thank you very
Hello?
much for that, sir. I'm with
So it
you,
was a
sir. Like,
temporary problem. It didn't have any permanent consequence. And let's move on. It's come, it's gone.
thank you very much for that, sir. I believe our listeners can all hear you, and every person who will be watching this video later on, that COVID 19 is a story of the past. It didn't have any permanent impact, it was just temporary, and it has no impact on our current economy as we are all living our lives very well and fine now. And I'll go deeply back into the economic state of Nigeria. What advice do you have for Nigerians to do cultural and social factors, to use their cultural and social factors to influence the economic decisions in Nigeria? Because as much as we say powers are in the hand of the government, we believe the Nigerians also have their own role and they have their own part to play. So, what do you have for Nigerians to do to influence the economic decision making in Nigeria currently?
Well, Nigerians and the Nigerian government need to understand certain fundamental changes in the global scheme of things. It fits into every culture. There's no, it's,
Cultural difference.
yeah. China and India that I mentioned in respect of COVID
Yes, sir.
are the best challengers to the old industrial powers in things that we learned from the industrial powers, whether it's manufacturing, industrialization, exports, getting market economies to grow. China has outdone every of the old industrial powers except the United States now. China is second to the US in terms of size of GDP. China has an export that is larger than that of any other country in the world, including US. India is following closely. Soon, India will become the third largest economy in the world
Wow.
after US and China. It
In
has
China.
overtaken all else except Japan and Germany. And give India 2-3 years, it would have overtaken Japan and Germany. It has overtaken UK, that used to be its colonial master. There is nothing cultural about it. The Indian culture and Chinese culture are different.
Different.
Indian ideology and Chinese ideology are different. Brazil is coming very closely. Its own ideology is different. So you can assimilate modern economic growth ideas regardless of your culture, regardless of your religion. And namely, is that we're currently at the age in which technological innovations
Hmm.
are happening at an intensive rate
Yes.
that it is challenging what we used to know about production, about growth, about manufacturing, about exports. There are many of
Mhm.
the products that we held dear to heart are disappearing. They are being replaced by intangible alternatives through digitalization or through biotechnology or through ecological technology that is making renewables to replace non-renewables. So it means that world exports is slowing down, world manufacturing is slowing down, world industrialization is slowing down, and in their place, world servitization is growing. Services is more than half of world GDP now, and it can only grow larger as the things you buy and sell on the internet are not tangible. They're services. Nigeria should wake up to that reality. What sells now are the assets that you own, not the things you produce with that asset. What sells now are the skills that you have, knowledge that you have. What sells now are the places that you own. For example, your real estate. So if you are talking about culture, your tourist destinations.
Yes, sir.
In other parts of the world, um, tourists visit that they attract, and they're more foreign exchange than manufacturing, than industry that is declining. In Dubai, for example, has the largest,
Yes.
airport number of airport travelers passing through Dubai. Small desert economy. So what does Nigeria have to offer the world in terms of what it owns, not what it produces for them? That people who want to produce or want to consume will feel obliged to be in Nigeria before they can produce or enjoy leisure, which is what UAE, Saudi, and the rest of them are doing, which Nigeria can join. In a nutshell, it's a time that the government of Nigeria needs to maximize what we get from the real estate that the government owns, maximize what we get from the infrastructure that the government owns.
Mm.
And you, as individuals, should maximize what you get from the knowledge and the skills that you own. Because you can sit here in Nigeria and sell your skills remotely to people in the far corners of the universe through the internet. In a nutshell, let me just put it like that. We can interrogate it further.
Thank you very much, sir. Pastor Seni, you are welcome on board too. You just met us
Yeah,
in the.
thank you. You are welcome, Dr. Teriba.
Thank you very
Uh,
much.
I- I'm enjoying your analysis, but I would like to ask you this question. Nigeria happens to be 1 to 10 oil producing nation. Meanwhile, Nigerians are the most poorest people in the world. How can we reconcile that and to explain to ordinary man on the street why Nigerians are still suffering good health care, bad roads? What could be the solution if you happen to be the Minister of Finance in Nigeria right now?
Well, I didn't get the part about Minister of Finance, but I got the part about Nigeria being one of the largest oil producers in the world. You
Yes.
say Nigeria is the poorest. Nigeria is not the poorest.
Nigerians are the poorest, though despite the fact we are one of the largest oil producing country. Nigerians are the poorest.
Wait, Nigerians are not the poorest. Um, the way the incidence of poverty is high in Nigeria. Okay, Nigerians are currently known to have the largest number of poor people in the world. That doesn't make Nigerians the poorest. That says, well, on average, if you look at per capita income, Nigeria is
Exactly.
much richer. Nigeria is still a middle income economy. The poorest countries can't enter the middle income even in 10 years from now. They are in low income. So we are a middle income country, not a poor country. But inequality, ensures that the wealth that we have are concentrated in the hands of a few. Um, I don't know any other African country where individuals own more private jets than Nigeria. I'm not sure if in South Africa or in Egypt, if the number of private jets that are owned in Nigeria would not exceed the number of private jets owned in those two countries put together. So you can't say that Nigerians are poor. Nigerians are not poor. But inequality in that those who have access to the country's riches have access to it big time and exclude, a majority of the population. That there
So,
are
sir, how can
many Nigerians that are poor in the midst of riches. So that's the first. But your key point is that we have oil. You
exactly?
are you are
Exactly.
the at this present stage that we are in the world, having oil is not a license to wealth. Dubai has oil,
But they
but
are not
it
poor, sir.
extracts more wealth from its airport, from government-owned real estate, than it extracts from oil. Because if here in Nigeria is probably the only major country in Africa where you have airports, but you don't have any commercial terminal.
Mm.
And in aviation, 40% of the revenue in aviation come from the terminals. You don't have any commercial terminals. Only passengers can enter most Nigerian airports. If you want, to receive somebody who's arriving, you can. In other countries, you could have entered the airport for 6 hours before your guest arrives, spending money, shopping. In Nigeria, you stand outside or sit in the car park. You can't enter. We lose a lot of opportunities. It's only when you travel 30 kilometers into the city where you can find shopping, that you can find hospitality that could have been provided at the airport. So Nigeria is poor, because we neglect assets that could make us rich. And this oil deceives a lot. The problem is that for every barrel of oil that Nigeria produces, and you are told that we earn $75 a barrel on it, what's Nigeria's value added in that barrel of oil? All the equipment have been imported. Um, the equity is maybe 50%, 40% foreign owned. So when you look at Nigeria's value added from each barrel of oil, if we get $10, we'll be lucky. So don't compare yourself, with countries where they have local content. With
So,
countries where
now,
the equipment is theirs, and $70 per barrel, $65 is theirs. So here, much of that $75 is repatriated back abroad. So let's not deceive ourselves about oil, any longer.
but one of the
The
challenges
real
I'm
estate,
having,
the land. Yes.
one of the challenges
What?
we are having now, sir, is that the little resources coming from oil has not been translated into a better life for Nigerians.
Well, more resources. I'm saying that there are resources that are not as encumbered that we can generate wealth from and keep that wealth. How many Nigerians get to work in an oil oil production? It's equipment intensive. The number of people that get employed, they are few. But you look at the number of Nigerians that would have been employed if our airport terminals worked. If rail worked, rail could easily be the largest employer in the country if it worked. When it was worked, so it's not just that the government extracted money from it, the people, extracted livelihood from it. It impacted every facet of the country's life. So I want to say that Nigeria has big opportunities that we are not exploiting. And that's the sad story of the current situation. Nigeria has opportunities that can attract big investment that could show up reserves, but we neglect those opportunities, like in rail development. We've developed telecoms with investors' money. We could develop rail with investors' money. All these airport terminals I'm talking about, we could develop them with investors' money. And it's, makes people, it empowers people, it generates income for people, it lifts people out of poverty on a daily basis. Every meter, additional meter of rail, takes some more people out of poverty. But let's see how long it will take us to sort of take our sight off the mirage called oil and look at opportunities to generate wealth. Japan, second, third largest economy in the world now, has no oil, and they're the better off for it. Oil probably is a curse, not a blessing, because it shifts your attention away from things that could have enriched you. You say, I have oil, I have oil. Whereas you don't gain that much, from the oil that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Teriba. With this general price increase in goods and services in Nigeria now, what will be your advice to consumers, to ordinary man on the street? Because if you look at it on daily basis, the prices of goods and services are increasing. If you are to advise three set of people, an investor in this Nigeria market, which area of investment will you advise such? The consumers in commodities and services, where will you advise them to spend their money? Because as a form of investment also. And what would be your advice to the government, what to do differently, as the case may be right now?
Okay. First, the inflation is fueled by devaluation. And we started by saying government should shore up reserves to stabilize the exchange rate. If you don't stabilize the exchange rate, you can't solve any other problem. Inflation will not come down, interest rate will not come down. And therefore, cost of living will remain a moving target. But if you stabilize the exchange rate, inflation will come down, interest rate will come down, and cost of living will come down. So the prescription is that while the exchange rate is not stable, what are the options, coping options for the average Nigerian? Is that, well, as hard as it might sound, or the best coping option is, as much as you can, you should explore earning some income in foreign exchange. You should do all that is possible. So you are a religious organization. You probably have previous members of your parish who are now in the diaspora. So the people selling foodstuff should start thinking about which foodstuff that member liked very much while they were at home, and looking for a way of asking if they can package some and send it to them where they are, so that they can pay them in hard currency. So if you earn 5% of your revenue in hard currency, or 10% of your revenue in hard currency, it's not just foodstuff. It can be, clothing, it could be jewelry, it could be anything. So think of how you could diversify your income portfolio so that you also receive some. So that as the exchange rate goes up, as you worry about local prices going up, you also will at least smile when you see that the $10 that you just earned will give you more naira. If you convert at the escalated exchange. That probably is one practical ideas, and you can organize, self-help, and let people, uh, be organized into groups, give them information about what they can produce, what could sell. Even in the West Coast, and if they're lucky enough, to find off takers, in Europe or in America or in the Middle East. Better still, so and you can also help them to organize how to, foolproof the, transactions and make sure that the risks are minimized. In a nutshell, that's what I will say. It's what you say, to individuals or to companies, and also the country should also look for a way of getting more foreign exchange reserves to make us reduce the pressure of looking for diversifying income uh, uh, in hard currency or not.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Teriba. What you are saying in nutshell is that we should pay more attention to agricultural produce so we can make more money right from exporting such produce to earn foreign exchange, to take
It's not just
advantage of
agricultural
the
produce. It's
engagement.
not just agricultural produce. Anything that you know how to sell. I've mentioned even clothing. I've mentioned, fashion items. It depends, why you supplying what you supply your current church members that are still in Nigeria. Think of those that you could also pitch to those that used to be your members that are now abroad, and construct a path, to see if there is a way of serving, people abroad, people in diaspora with the same
That same
services.
market.
Yes, if it could be food, it could be non-food. And those who could pitch out, who have skills with which they can pitch out to companies, not even just individuals, should also think very well about doing that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Teriba. I want you to look at the agricultural sector now, because if you look at it, some part of the world are subsidizing agriculture for them to, if people can feed adequately 3 square meal, they can lessen the burden on people. But with close to 230 million Nigerians, what will be your advice to government on agriculture? How can we subsidize agriculture?
Now, I don't think Nigeria is at the stage where it can be picking sectors to subsidize. Otherwise, we'll be throwing good money after bad. Not agriculture, not manufacturing, not any sector. The best subsidy to give to all Nigerians right now is to connect the entire country with rail.
Rail transportation.
That's right. That was the first thing that the colonial regime did when they arrived. When they left us with a nationwide network of rail transport system, which we wrecked, within 2.5 decades of their exit. It's scourging us now. So that agriculture that you mentioned, you want to subsidize. The same government tells us that 60% of farm produce are lost to post-harvest losses. So it's not that we don't have crops that we grow. 60% of them are lost after harvest. They don't get to the market. That's what you get when there is no rail transport. If it's about trucking inputs and outputs, forget it. Don't talk about subsidy. So if you subsidize, and 60% of the output that you are going to subsidize is going to be lost anyway, Why don't you go and remove the root cause of that losses? If rail works, 99% of farm produce will get to the market. If rail works, make rail work. Government doesn't have the money. Neither the government have the money to make telecoms work. Telecom works in every nook and cranny of the country because we liberalize the pace for investors. Do the same with rail. Now is the best subsidy you can give to agriculture, to manufacturing, to me, to you, to the poorest of the poor. Because when rail transportation works, it lowers the living costs of everybody. It increases the purchasing power of everybody. Make rail work, and Nigerians will forever be grateful. Without that, the colonial regime would not have succeeded in getting the crops from the hinterland or the minerals from the hinterland to the coast. We are not succeeding now. So don't deceive yourself, that you can choose manufacturing as priority or you can choose agriculture as priority when you don't have transport infrastructure. You have Dangote refinery here in Lagos. You have no rail to transport you now send trucks to be loading PMS. So it's so uncompetitive. We shouldn't continue with it. So rail is a problem that you solve. Once you solve it, you solve 100 other problems. Just like if you stabilize the exchange rate, it will solve 200 other problems. So Nigerians should learn to prioritize. So for macro policy, prioritize exchange rate stability. However, you want to get reserve, put 60 billion there. Let the exchange rate be stable. Nigerians will be grateful for it. The government will be grateful for it. And people will praise President Tinubu. For sector, until you get rail to work, you shouldn't have any other sectoral priority.
Wow.
If rail works, and of course, if you want to do rail now, you should do pipelines underneath them. If you want to do rail now, you should do fiber optics cables underneath them. If you want to do rail now, you should do power transmission nodes above them. So if you want to get investors to connect the whole nation, maybe 6,000 kilometers of rail over the next 1 year, next 1.5 years, it's going to deliver you not just rail transport, it's going to deliver you pipelines, it's going to deliver you fiber optics and power transmission. And the national grid will stop collapsing. And Nigerians will be very grateful to President Tinubu. But as long as you leave that unsolved, and you are talking agriculture, you are talking manufacturing, then we will be deceiving ourselves.
I thank you, sir, Dr. Ayo Teriba, for that breakdown and explanation that government should pay more attention on building infrastructure like rail network rather than putting money in subsidizing agricultural produce. How can we
Money that
tackle
we
all the
don't even have. Money that we don't even have. And the money for infrastructure should come from investors.
Okay, sir. Sir, one of the challenges that we have in Nigeria now is that we are shorting out graduates into the unemployment market. How can we reduce the rate of unemployment in Nigeria as at now? Many youth are asking me, Pastor, is there hope in Nigeria or we should japa?
Well,
If you have to advise them, what would be your advice to them?
You see, we just answered that question. When before GSM, telecoms was not working, just 500,000 lines in the whole country. With GSM, you have nearly 200 million lines connected. Did it or did it not create employment? all over the country. So solve problems that will solve other problems. Deal with rail. India claims that the rail sector, Indian Rail, is the largest employer in India. And that is the fourth largest employer in the world. I don't know, what they mean by that. But in India, with more than a billion people population, rail is the largest employer there. The rail, impacts on jobs. I don't know any other sector that has that kind of impact. The rail, so fix rail and you have fixed employment. And if you do what we're saying about, power transmission and the rest of that, power will employ more. Fiber optics we employ, the pipelines, if you do them, we employ. And then you can see clearly to redefine your priority in agriculture, to redefine your priority in manufacturing. Are we together?
Thank you, Dr. Teriba. Before I allow Rachel to continue with you, one of the challenges we are having in Nigeria is that if you keep 100,000 naira in your bank account in January, you will discover that most of the money has been depleted by bank charges, which doesn't happen all over the world. I have a friend that has 27,000 naira. He left the country. Before he came back, charges, different charges. Don't you think one of the challenges we're having is the failure of our government institution, regulatory authority? Because these charges, when it comes to CBN, they are getting out of hand.
Which charges? Which charges?
Bank charges, SMS charges, debit card charge, maintenance charges, and 50 naira. It doesn't happen. Other countries maintain their economies, they maintain their banking structure. But in Nigeria, different form of charges. They are even not stipulated in the CBN regulatory book. People are complaining. What will be your advice to the banks, sir?
Well, I would not want to pretend that I know enough about the challenges that banks are facing in delivering the services that they have to deliver to you and I. So I don't have information to evaluate whether they are justified, in the charges to be able to meet their obligations to us, payment services to us. So I would not want to be unfair to them. So you may want to invite people who may be, active in the sector in the interest of fairness. So I would not want to comment on that. I also pay these charges, but you all know how challenging it has become in Nigeria, even just to live your own life, much less to render service to other people. So I'll be careful the kind of comments I make.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that, sir. Rachel.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that session, Dr. Ayo Teriba. I must
Thank
say, it was we had such a wonderful moment with you. We learned more than enough from you, as you have suggested. I can remember vividly your advice to the Nigerians saying that we should always try to redefine who we see right in front of the mirror in order not to ensure that the current foreign exchange rate is not getting to us, but we should rather see the potentials that we possess. And then I remember your advice concerning the government trying to run a railway connection system, which will actually solve the problem of unemployment and the agricultural losses that we have currently. You also made explanations concerning the reserves, the money reserves in Nigeria, which will also help us stabilize the foreign exchange rate. We had such a wonderful moment with you. And I must say, you're truly a man of thousands of knowledge, if not more, sir. Thank you very much for this session with us. Thank you, our listeners. Thank you for joining in Past 45 on this episode. We will see you next time, the same station, next month, the last Sunday of every month. Do well to stay tuned. Remember, in Past 45 is to ensure your voices do not go unheard. Thank you. Do have a
Thank you
nice
very
day.
much. Thank you,
Do
everyone.
have a nice
Thank you, Pastor
day.
Oseni.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Richard.
Ayo Teriba. We really appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
And I know that maybe our viewers we ask us to call you back again because we still have a lot of questions that we have not exhausted here. Thank you once
Always,
again. You're welcome.
always at your service.
Thank you, sir.
We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you, sir.
Thank you.
Do have a good week.
You too, moderator.
Bye.
Bye bye. Bye, Pastor.